All right, hi, welcome to MMO speedrunning. This is very informal. This is not going to be anything crazy at all. So, like, if you have questions or anything in the middle of it, just like raise hands.
Just make sure you use that mic.
Yeah, go for it. Like, it doesn't. It's fine. Nothing too serious. Just like, this is more so like I've been running like a static game for several years now, and now switching over to an MMO, along with all these other people, is like, what have we experienced as we going on? So, first off, quick introductions. Hello, I am Shockwve. I've run at 5 GDQs at this point, running Hat in Time beta. Yes, I ran a beta to GDQ. Good story, not really. Ran Borderlands 2 twice, pre-sequel once.
I can't believe you were one of the runners of that.
What, the beta?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 2016. That was a
Oh, yeah.
fun time on Twitter. So that, Borderlands 2 twice. I ran Borderlands 2 at the last GDQ, if you saw that, pre-sequel. And then at this GDQ, I'll be running Destiny 2. Been speedrunning basically since 2012, on and off. Started mainly with Sonic Generations. Been running Destiny 2 since 2017, more so new game with the switch to raids in 2019 or 2018, and then just the genres listed below. Let's not do that. It wouldn't be a panel if something didn't go wrong. You know, let's just quit this. You know what? You know what?
Just show them all your
It's
Discords.
fine.
It's fine.
This is nothing
It's fine.
crazy.
It's fine.
All right.
As my message said, it's
All right.
fine.
Packle.
I'm the Packle. I am a 2x. It says 4x, but I've gotten 4 games in. This is my second GDQ.
You've done 4 games, so that's why I put
It
4x.
When you said 4x, I'm like, I haven't been in 4 of them. I've been in
Whatever.
2 of them. I've gotten 4 games in. I'm mostly a Tony Hawk runner, but I started making the transition over to Destiny last year. Along with that, I also did Medal of Honor Airborne last AGDQ. Been running since September 2012. Started with Wind Waker, and somehow progressed all the way to MMOs. Don't know how I did that. But as I said, I've mainly been doing Destiny 2 new game runs, new game plus runs, and raids since last year.
All right. Darkman.
Oh, it's me? Hey, I'm Darkman.
Not you yet.
Not me?
just Darkman.
Oh.
Now it's Kirk's.
I went one too far. Kirk's name showed up, so.
Hi, I'm Darkman. Yeah, I like how I'm the only one that says GDQ staff. I'm not a runner, you know, I don't count.
I always figured you'd fill that in on your own. But
I just like that. I like that. So, no, it's perfect. Yeah, so I've done runs at a GDQ before, way back in the day. AGDQ 18 was my last
I
one.
mean, you taught someone how to run Strider.
I did. Who's actually in this room right now. Hi, Jimmy. So yeah, so I've done a few runs, but and I've also been speedrunning for quite a while. But yeah, I've been Final Fantasy 14 speedrunning for a bit since 2016, mainly in the raid-based format, which is an 8-person team thing. So you're clearing kind of like the hardest content out there, except you're doing it fast, which is pretty fun. Yeah, that's me.
All right.
Hi, I'm Traderkirk. This is my first GDQ. I basically started speedrunning with Destiny. I ran Destiny 1 new game, which wasn't super popular, and then when Destiny 2 came out, moved into that. And pretty much did that until I met Shock and the PC crew when I moved to that, and then we started running raids.
You got suckered in doing raids.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I do now.
Oh, well, no, that's there too. So, immediately, the first question we wanted to at least think about or talk about was like, what makes MMO speedruns different than, we'll just say, your traditional speedrun, where you just kind of you plug in a cartridge, you sit down at a TV or a PC, and then you just go. So, what's like the major things that people would probably notice? First thing is that the game is never under your control. So you're playing a game that's live, that's being changed constantly. It always lives on the servers. You log into your account, your character, and you play basically whatever's on the table in front of you right now. That's going to be your run. It's not something you can go on eBay and buy an old version of the game and buy a Japanese, modded console to play. Like, you are playing what's in front of you on that screen. So down patching is not an option. You also need to stay connected online. So again, like the difference with consoles or even some PC games, you can just sit down, plug something in the corner of a room, and just go. You can do whatever you need to. With this, you need to be connected to the internet, you need to log into the servers, have something be stable. Even if you're doing something solo, sometimes you might need just to keep a connection active in order for you just to finish the activity that you're doing. So things like that. Those are the obvious things that people think about. But in the big picture, what are some things that are not so obvious that you might not think about when you're trying to plan these activities? So the first thing is we'll think about the key differences. First thing is the patches or system overhauls. So a game could be live and just naturally just change over time. Not necessarily an item gets changed, but the entire system of how something works can change. Second thing is content rotation. Sometimes you might have something when the game launches, but then either it goes away or it completely changes, or it just temporarily is unavailable because they're trying to change something with it. Time investment, gear prep, you can't just, with a lot of runs, you can't just sit down and just do it. You have to actually invest time to get ready to actually do these runs most of the time. Community involvement, you can argue that's probably valid for most communities, but with this one, with the fact that everything's changing so much, everyone has to be in the loop with what's new and on the table. And new items and content, and then events and things that could happen just by natural of trying to keep the game interesting for the devs, for the casual audience. So
I would say, just kind of expanding on that, one of the more unique things that we don't really need to spend a whole lot of time talking about, but I think one of the things, especially since all of us are involved in the same thing, is the team aspect of things. The fact that we're not doing solo runs, they do 6-player runs, I do 8-player runs. We're not just, you can't just pick up and do it whenever you want. You kind of have to work on based off everyone's schedule. So that kind of puts a whole wrinkle into speedrunning.
So the first thing we'll at least dive a little into is patches. First thing is first, that was supposed to be one line at a time. My bad. All right, well, we're going to go through everything at once at this point. Strats can change based on how items or systems change. So again, I mentioned earlier, is nothing could fundamentally change about how something works, but it could scale different. It could have a different delay in activation. It could have an entirely different effect because the one that was on there was previously too powerful.
Or removed altogether.
Let's use the first example of broken effects or side effects usually patched out. So sometimes, obviously, bugs get through, things happen, and you might want to try to abuse that for a speedrun. But with an MMO style thing, it's most likely going to get patched or disabled entirely. So we'll go into this thing called Dynamo for Destiny. Dynamo is a perk on a piece of armor where if you use your class ability next to enemies, you get more super energy. Pretty basic on how that works. Get near something, use your class, you get super energy in return. When the latest season for Destiny launched, that was severely busted, and I want you guys to see if you can tell me why you think it's busted. We'll just watch this for a little bit. Let me know when you figure it out. Is it a little obvious as to what happened? So obviously the bug that happened there was it was multiplying the effect that Dynamo had on your character. So you could have this piece of armor that would refresh your class ability when you used your super. So you would basically super class ability, and you could just chain it over and over again. So it got a little ridiculous. So for speedrunning, probably in a traditional thing, you would see yep, let's play on that patch. We're done. We're playing on that forever. But with an MMO, you can't really abuse that as much. Or the community might just say, yeah, that's getting patched, guaranteed. No one's allowed to use that. So, and then we'll give you for
Sure.
Final Fantasy 14.
All right, so yeah, I'll talk about the first thing, which is the Warrior Shake It Off. So, so in general, Final Fantasy 14 takes more of just kind of let's fix the skills that are broken, let's try to make them better, rather than just nerf, 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 nerf. They don't really do a lot of nerfing. They do more so buffs and skill overhaul. So yeah, I'm gonna list that example, Warrior Shake It Off. So that gives some context. What the old ability is, and 4.0 was the previous expansion. The current expansion is Shadowbringers, and that one was Stormblood. So when this came out, the Warrior, which is a tanking class, got a ability at level 68, I believe it was, and it was called Shake It Off. And what it did at that time was it simply removed a debuff from it, and it was on a 90-second cooldown, I believe. And you may think, oh, that doesn't sound terrible. It sounds all right. Well, let me give you context to how really useless that is. You don't really get a lot of debuffs in content. That doesn't happen a lot. And quite honestly, I think the way they designed it for an existing problem that existed in the previous patch that they fixed in another way. So it was kind of not a very good skill. Nobody used it. It was kind of a laughing joke amongst warriors. So instead they decided to change it. Literally 3 weeks after the game came out, they just completely overhauled it, changed it to something entirely different. So now we went from removing a debuff to it now gave every single member of your party a shield that absorbed, I believe, 10% of the warrior's maximum health. So you can see that completely changed the entire the way the skill worked, and that skill change alone like changed the way people looked at warriors. So like now you go from like, you know, a game. So at that time we had 3 different tanking classes. So now you go from, oh yeah, we don't really want to use warrior, we prefer going with the paladin and the dark knight at that time, and now it's like, oh well, now warriors actually look pretty good, we should consider that. So you know, the skills, you know, skill changes can be kind of minor or they can be super major like that.
So, and then to move on to the next point is developers want to remove power creep or change scaling. We had this exact actually issue happen when the latest expansion for Destiny came out, which was Shadow Keep. It was very easy for a player to hit the visual damage cap, which was 1 million, like that, without even trying. You could easily hit that number, not see actually how much damage you're doing, and basically the algorithm to figure out how much damage you were doing was already out of control. So they went back, everything got rescaled, brought down to sort of more manageable levels. So most things weren't like changed drastically, but because of all the scaling that would happen, some things did end up getting tweaked. So things changed a little bit in terms of just runs in general. Is the scaling changed damage output, therefore runs have to adapt to that change. Yeah, you could say that in general. Speedruns are at the mercy of developers. They want to change something. They think the algorithm's too high. There's nothing you can do about it. They're going to change it, so you just have to be prepared for that change.
Yeah, and kind of like going back to like some of my examples of just like how kind of like throw a wrench in the thing. So like, so we have Ninja. So Ninja is one of our DPS classes. It is a melee DPS class. So in Final Fantasy XIV, for those not familiar, there are different types of DPS. There's melee, ranged, and caster. And you know, you generally take one of each of those like in your group. So like amongst those, so like of course Ninja being in the melee, so you look at like the Ninja, you look at the other melee DPS classes and see which ones you're going to take. And with 5.0, the latest expansion, Shadowbringers, Ninja wasn't really in a great place. Like it was very hard to use, and the reward you get for using it wasn't really that good. So in 5.1, which is just a patch, it's not the release of a new expansion, it's just a patch that came out a few months later, they completely changed the way Ninja works, which was like unprecedented. Like they never do something like that. This was a very major change. Like to give a reference, there's what is called the global cooldown. So that is a typical thing in most MMOs where you use a skill and all of those, like a lot of skills share that global cooldown. And in Final Fantasy XIV, it's 2.5 seconds. So you use a skill and then you have to wait 2.5 seconds. Now the quirk about 14 is there are a lot of off global cooldowns. So these are skills you can use when your global cooldown is refreshing. So you can use those off global cooldowns in between your global cooldowns. And the way to use Ninja basically relies on you using a lot of those off global cooldowns, because you know, you have to use them, of course, to do optimal damage, but the thing is if you're using them and your global cooldown comes back up and you're still using those off global cooldowns, well, you're kind of using it inefficiently, because you're essentially doing what's called clipping, and it reduces your optimal damage output. So to kind of make the long story short, one of the most important things to Ninja was called Ninki. So they had these mudras that they used, which are always off global cooldowns back at the time, and they would always use them in quick succession, because they basically, you use one and you have 3 of them, and you use them in a certain combination in order to form the skill that they use. So like you would go like, so it's 10 Chi Jin, so you go like 10 Jin would form something, Chi Jin would form something, 10 Chi Jin would form something, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing is like you use it, point like 5 seconds, use another one, 0.5 seconds, use another one, 0.5 seconds. So if you were to use all 3 at the same time, like all 3 in succession, it would probably take you like 5 seconds to like execute it. So you can see you're way past your global cooldown at that point. So essentially what happened was you're just clipping the entire time using Ninja. It was very inefficient, very rough on the fingers, as you can imagine. So what they did is they changed the way mudras worked, and now they made it such that it's on the global cooldown. So now you're not worried about clipping anymore. You can use those now just whenever it's time to use your next GCD. So that was a significant change. It changed entirely the way Ninja worked. People are still kind of like getting used to the new Ninja, but it's a lot better than what it used to be. But still, like, they changed the fundamental way the class worked. Like, just because you were good at it at 5.0 doesn't mean you were good at it in 5.1. So it was very interesting, and like it definitely changed the way people like looked at the class and also looked at your raid composition.
All right, so moving on. I missed another one too.
Nice.
All right, so system overhauls. We'll make this one quick just because that slide was a little longer than we probably wanted. But the system overhauls. Destiny 2. You can probably imagine this game has changed a bunch since it first released. If you've heard of anything about news and articles, Kotaku, stuff like that, the weapon system entirely changed a year after the game launched. So before it was 2 basically light damaging weapons and then a huge DPS weapon. And once Forsaken came out, which was the expansion 1 year after, it was now 1 primary weapon, 1 special weapon, which is like a shotgun, a sniper, and a fusion rifle, and then a heavy weapon. So like the fact that your weapon system completely changed how fast you can do runs, how fast you can clear ads, how fast you can just do things in general, because you're working with a different kit now, let alone just the same game slightly tweaked. It entirely changes how you do it. Armor 2.0 was something that came out in October this year. It changed how armor worked in general. So instead of it being just about what perks you had in your armor, now you have to worry about what stats you have on your armor and making sure that your stats work along with the perk set and whatever perks you can put on that armor. So like system overhauls can not only just tweak the general gameplay, but tweak on things that you do to min-max your build for a speedrun exactly. So in Last Wish particularly, I use a sniper for my particular role in that run. So I'm looking for a very specific role kit on that armor, so that way I can be most effective in that run. Otherwise, I'm kind of wasting a couple slots that I could use for either extra ammo, extra reloading, extra, you get the point. I'm going to throw it to Kirk here because he has most of these about the movement changes and the leveling changes.
Yeah,
Go for it.
There's one of the classes in Destiny is a Warlock, and it has pretty much throughout all of D2's lifespan, it's had the fastest movement tech, except for one thing, but I'm not really going to worry about that. In one of the older patches, they added an insane amount of speed to the one of the supers for Warlock, and it just greatly outclassed everything else in terms of speed. This most recent patch, Shadowkeep, it was Season of Dawn.
Season of Dawn, they added
They
it.
changed it where they completely removed the speed boost that Super got, and added new speed to a movement type or an air dodge to a different version of that same super, called Icarus Dash, and it is the same speed as the fastest movement tech outside of a super now.
Yeah, but it doesn't cost ammo is the big thing. It's just on a cooldown after using it 2 times.
Yeah,
so we can use it anywhere now versus just with ammo.
And then leveling changes is huge, especially for New Game. When Destiny 2 first came out, New Game took like 3 or 4 hours to run. And then in Shadowkeep, they bumped everybody's level up to max, even a brand new character, and just completely removed all of the XP grinding it used to have and knocked the run down to under an hour and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
So it completely changed how that run was handled.
It removed the entire 2-hour farming section.
Yeah.
There was 2 hours in the New Game run where you would just sit and do this fight for 2 hours and then die so that way you could respawn everything. So it saved more than half the run just because they wanted to make a systematic change for a casual audience. So
a lot of your speed just came from optimizing that fight in particular. Trying to, if you do a co-op especially, you want to make sure your supers are delayed enough so that way you can clear it as much as possible. Then you have to worry about you can't kill too fast, otherwise the game will try to cap you and how much experience you get in a short amount of time. It was a lot to manage.
It's completely gone now. Don't have to worry about it. Just skip that entire section. So here's an example of a pre-patch thing that we used to use before. So the main thing that this revolved around was a piece of armor called Lunafaction Boots. It would put you in this we'll just call it a circle. You'd stand in this circle, and if the Warlock had this on, when they put the circle down, everyone's weapons would automatically reload. So you could skip reloading. You could just dump everything you have into a boss instantly without having to worry about it. There is one swear word. I just made sure to note it. That's all. So, this is still playing. Whoopsies.
Nice.
All right, don't worry about
Showing
it.
some PvP footage.
All right, so this is from our old.
I mean,
this
I already
is,
said it.
yeah, I'll just let it play.
She's going.
Nice.
Nice.
That took 2 cycles, but that's fine.
So here she's coming. Put on
Boots
the
are on.
boots. Drop the well on the floor. Just do a couple buff management. Oh, never mind.
And buffer.
Tractor.
Yeah, but just look at the grenades. Look at the ammo counter in the bottom left. It's just automatically refilling. This was easy. This made everyone, even casuals, just be able to let's just do this instead of actually fight the boss, because you could just stand in a well and just kill the things.
To note as well, for that boss fight, there is a specific amount of time you're allowed to kill her during that part, We probably didn't even hit halfway into that time.
You can just bank everyone on one side and just kill her fast enough that you can skip the entire mechanics of the fight. It's great. Now post patch, they got rid of that. It doesn't auto reload anymore because it was making that stuff, example, way too easy. So they got rid of that. Now it just gives you a giant reload speed buff. You can still do it, but it requires a lot more micromanaging. It requires a much more suited kit for that fight. You have to spend more time actually farming weapons and making sure that works. So got the other video here just to at least show what the new version looks like.
By the way, just reminding myself, times 4 check. Killing these fuckers in mid, not again.
That's
So watch how much management of just like ammo and weapons that he does here. So people threw supers
one
out.
about
He's
shoot
using
the
a
ball,
sniper,
please.
switching to grenade launcher, shoot those out instead. Shooting out snipers instead. So every single person on the team is now doing this. Instead of just sitting in a well, shooting a grenade launcher infinitely, you have to manage a super, a sniper, shooting a grenade launcher, switch to the sniper, let that reload in your pocket, then pull that back out. Like
You have to
there's
worry
a lot.
about specific perks on those weapons as well.
So you're managing so much more because of the fact that they got rid of just that one change. It was a tiny change, but that just dramatically changed the run. So now it became less easy and became more difficult with the specific kit.
All right, so now it's my turn. I'm going to show you what it's like to speedrun a little bit about Final Fantasy 14. These are raid strats. So basically, we create kind of like, there's intended strategies and there's unintended strategies. So first, I'm going to kind of show you, I'm going to break down a specific part in our latest raid tier. This is the third fight of that tier. There's usually 4 fights in a tier. So this is the third fight of the tier. And thanks to my great boy who's in this room right now, Knox, we're going to use this video of the clear, and we're going to break it down. So I'm going to kind of start and stop the video at certain points, because I know there's a lot going on in screen over the course of these 30 seconds, and it's probably going to make not a lot of sense unless you get some explanation. So we'll kind of break it down. So let's see here. There we go. All right. So first things first. They're all grouped up and all that. It's great. What? We'll move on. It's fine. So we're all grouped up. It's great. Great Toad. And they're going to get pushed. So they're going to get pushed forward because they executed the mechanic properly. And what's going to happen is while they're getting pushed forward, you will see Leviathan. So you see that red bar on the top. So that is Leviathan right there, and that is the health of the person. But under it, you're going to see a cast bar. So that ability that he's going to be casting, while they're getting pushed forward, once that ability executes, he's going to break the center of the arena, and he's going to split it into 2 halves. Naturally, as you think, okay, with 2 halves, we've got to split up our group. A certain amount of people have to go to the left side, a certain amount of people go to the right side. There's 2 reasons for that. 1, because it gives you more positioning for the next mechanics that are going to happen. And 2, there's a certain debuff that 2 unique people have that if it's too close to the other one, is just going to kill everyone. So you're going to see, first off, what's going to happen here. While our good friend Knox is making sure he's casting appropriately. All right, so there you go. So you see there, they get knocked up. So you see the little undersea quake there. So that's going to knock out this in the arena. You see Knox is going to the right side here, and you see his team running to the right side. So you can see it's split up evenly, 4x4. So we do that. Bam, there we go. Yeah, you don't want to be there.
Closer first.
So now what's going to happen next is Leviathan is going to go to either the left or the right side. And what that's doing is he's doing a like square rectangle like AoE hit through the arena, and you have to properly position yourself such that you don't get hit by that, because if you get hit by that, you're falling off the platform, you're also taking a lot of damage, so you don't want to do that. So they're going to go to the appropriate spot, and you can kind of see here, let me get this on screen. So he went to the right. So what this means is he's going to go basically a giant rectangle through the thing. So they can't be up here in this little center here, they have to go back. But the group over here on the left is going to go up front because this spot is now safe and behind is bad. So you can see this. So they're doing that appropriately. And there we go. And the reason they're stacked on top of each other is you're going to see that. So right there, that little donut thing that went off, if you're like a little bit north of that, a little bit south of that, you take a hit, you die. So everybody has to be stacked for that to make sure that they are taking the appropriate damage. So you see right there, so that thing does damage, which is normal, that's how it works. But because of the way things are split up, we have 1 healer on each side. So that means each healer has to heal their own group because you're too far away from each other. Like the healers on each side, they won't reach the other side. Their heals are too far away. So as a result, they have to spend a lot of resources healing each other or healing their group because not only they take damage there, in a few seconds you're going to see Leviathan casting something. Yeah, Tidal Roar, that also does damage. And while the clip is almost over, there's also damage coming up in like 30 seconds as well. So it's a lot of work on the healers in order to do this. So you know, we can do that, do it the intended way, or we can do it the cool way. So yeah, go out of that.
You guys good enough?
Yep. So we go to the speed strat. So I apologize in advance with quality. It's not really good, but just bear with me here. Nice. So same part, right? So you know what's going to happen, right? They're going to kick us up, right? And now Leviathan's casting Undersea Quake, so he's going to knock, you know, the arena out, and we're going to have to split up, or are we? So in this instance, everybody goes to the same side. So it was found out that while we know Square did not intend for this to happen, you can, in fact, with proper positioning, put everybody on the same side and still be out of that range such that they won't get hit by those donuts. So you see right here, so you see they're all going to the proper spot. And the temporary current's about to hit, which is the little square thing. So bam, bam. So let's look at that. It's beautiful. So not only did they properly dodge that square mechanic, they also made sure they were far enough away from each other such that they won't get hit by that donut. So now you can see the obvious benefit to this. The healers are both within range. They can hit everybody with their heals. Now they can use a lot less resources to heal up. The tanks can use their damage mitigation abilities in sync, so now they can reduce the damage from those abilities. The DPS can use their abilities to mitigate the damage. So you're taking a lot less damage now, and what that means is the healers now have more time to DPS as a result. So just those little strategies like that can go a long way. So I mean, just look at it. It's beautiful. Like, there's really nothing going on. Like that white mage over there just casting Glare, which is their DPS ability, because they don't need to do anything. It's great. But yeah, so that's kind of like one way that like you can you know, do like unintended strategies to kind of like benefit your raid composition like in speedruns.
Yeah. So now you've seen like examples of just like differences between normal and speed strats. Now we'll move on to the next thing of content rotation. So as in Destiny, they like to rotate content out. They like to keep things fresh, try to keep you a reason to come back playing every day. This is mainly for the casual audience, but that can drastically affect speedruns. If there's a particular IL that we like to run and it's just not up that day, we can't do it. Like, we just physically can't do it. An example, actually I was talking to Packle about this earlier, like what if it's just a bad streak of that mission just doesn't come up because it's not on a cycle, like a complete cycle rotation, it's random rotations. So a mission could just not come up for like 2 weeks, then there's one day that it's up, but let's say you have something that just happened to come up and then you have to do it. Now you can't do your run anymore. You've had 2 weeks where you could do the run. The one day that you can't do it, now it's up for content, like the content rotation's up. You're just screwed. There's nothing you can do. So for sometimes content rotations, like you just physically cannot do your run because it's just not available. Another thing is Nightfall strikes. So there's strikes that are up on a 3-thing rotation. You can change the modifiers to be faster. There's only 3 of them per week, but there's like 10 or 12 different, or just like 10 or 15, whatever. But there's like 10 or 15 different versions or different strikes, but there's only 3 per week. So there's nothing you can do, again, if it's not up. You're just unlucky. Probably the big key example is Leviathan Raid. So Leviathan Raid for Destiny is a raid that has 3 like mechanic-based encounters. They're not bosses, but they rotate which order you go in every week. So it could be, you know, ABC this week, and then it could be BAC next week, and then CAB the next week. And it just does that, like, on rotation. And of course, because we're speedrunners, we're trying to optimize things, there's a particular combination of those things that have to happen first in order to do runs. So basically, for about a month and a half, you cannot run that raid. You cannot speedrun that raid until that rotation's up, and then it's just grind for a week. Like, it kind of can kill a little bit of your energy to want to do it because you're just sitting there waiting because there's nothing you can do. You can practice things, but like the movement between each thing isn't going to be the same. And then the dungeon used to be only available every 3 weeks. It also, you weren't able to reset it. So if you wanted to try again, you had to finish the whole thing, then retry again, which would take about an hour most of the time. So yeah, that kind of sucked.
So yeah, so with Final Fantasy 14, unlike Destiny 2, where it's like kind of more just like a little bit more random or a little bit more like on a schedule based. It's not really the case with 14. You can play content whenever you want. The issue is mostly like the content cycles kind of like drive the interest. So like there's really like most people are interested in the current tier, right? They're interested in the current raid and what it has to offer because you're playing it a lot to get your gear, you're playing it a lot to clear it, of course. So that's like what most people are interested in. And you know, we do get content regularly. Like it's on a pretty regular schedule. Like about every 7 months we get a new raid tier for people to tackle. So it's like there's always that like looking forward to the next one rather than like not being sure when we're gonna get it. Let's just keep working on the old tier, that sort of thing. Nah. And also we get a buff called Echo, which basically makes your stats stronger in old content. Whenever a new content is introduced, the old content gets Echo. So it kind of makes it a little bit easier to complete. And on top of that, you have better gear. When you have better gear, it makes the fight a lot easier to the point where like the fight significantly changes from what it used to be back when like it was current. So it just really like doesn't incentivize people. It demotivates them to run like the old content. So most of our like speed running for raids is focused on like the current fights rather than like the old fights.
All right. I meant to have Packle do the last slide, so you can have this one this time.
Oh man.
So
There's a bunch of
that
comments.
was not meant to go in the mic. It's my side.
So, of course, with speedrun, there's a bunch of different categories. There's any percent, 100%, ILs, and I don't even know this joke, honestly.
I realized I screwed this joke up pretty badly.
No, it's
Yeah,
good.
so-
No wall clips, no bag of jumps,
yeah.
new game.
Yeah, it's everyone's favorite category.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't even know what that is, honestly.
Don't worry
but,
about it.
I stole it from GDQ, man. Ask GDQ.
Well, GDQ is right here.
Yeah, you stole it from us.
Okay.
All right.
So with a bunch of other games, you can just pick up the game, have your system, have your TV or monitor or whatever, and you can start learning, you can start playing.
I'm just gonna stop doing that.
Thank
Sorry.
But that's not really the case with MMOs. There is a lot that you have to do for prerequisites to actually get to the point where you can speedrun effectively. Kind of skipped ahead a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably zero for that
It's
too.
just-
All right.
Shock, you're not very good at telling jokes.
I screwed the order up of this pretty
It's all
badly.
right.
So, all right, go ahead.
So it varies immensely.
Here, you can click this if you want.
I appreciate it. So it varies immensely. For just regular dailies, there's probably some weapons that would be nice to have. For raids, there's specific things you should have for it to be to go pretty fast. Sometimes it's practically required based on the strategies that you would be using in the raid, i.e., if you don't have a specific grenade launcher for the final boss of our raid, it's not going to go nearly as fast. In fact, you might have to end up doing the proper mechanics instead of having to do the fast strat. So that's stuff you have to keep in mind. As he said, probably more for Final Fantasy 14, definitely along the same one. You can
Yeah.
go faster as you go along, better loot, better grind.
Yeah, for 14, basically the brunt of the prep time comes in like the raids and the weeklies. So you have basically you have these tomestones that you can get in Final Fantasy 14, and you can get a certain amount of the most like popular, the current tomestone. And in order to get those, you just do weekly activities. They have like roulettes where you get like different dungeons based on what you pick, and you get a certain amount of tomestones for those. So it's like a couple hours a week to like kind of cap your tombstones, so that's not too big of a deal. And then on top of that, there's raids. Like you do weekly clears in order to get your loot, so that happens once a week. So that's basically the brunt of our activities.
For Destiny, it's a lot. It gets to the point where if you do like raids or any sort of content, after a certain level, it really doesn't matter anymore. You can have a higher level, but it will not make things any easier in any way, shape, or form. So it matters more about the weapons you get, the armor you get, the perks you get on those weapons and armor that really make things faster. And everything is RNG based. It's going to take time to get all that. If you want to get the proper roll, it takes time.
Yeah, we have an example for that in a second. We can-
Yeah. So there are new game runs, there are new game plus runs where you can just start off, just do whatever, get what you get as you go along. And of course, 0 to max level speed runs kind of the same boat, just going as fast as you can. You just get what you get along the way, and there's really no setup time. But for those are few and far between. Not many people do those activities.
Unlike Kirk, who
I'm one of like maybe 2 people who have run Destiny
I'm
2
the
new
second
game
one.
at
Yeah.
any point, like
You do-
somewhat serious.
you do the comparison between people who do new game runs and people who do like raid speed runs, like, and it's just massive. You have Kirk and like
Oh,
3 or 4 other people that do new game, and then you have like 20 plus that do raids. So like it's definitely weighted more towards the I already have a character ready to go activities versus let me start all the way over again.
I think ILs are even more popular than new game,
Yeah, probably.
and I think there's maybe been 1 new game plus since the most recent patch ever. So
For Destiny 1?
Destiny 2.
Destiny 2, okay. That's fair.
No, Destiny 1 New Game Plus was actually pretty popular because it didn't take that long to set up compared to Destiny 2's.
So going back to this, like the gear stuff that you get like during runs is you have to think about when you're trying to prep your character for actual like speed runs is how much does having the perfect gear matter? So like I said, for example, for me, I use snipers a lot in the role that I'll be doing on stage for Destiny 2. How much does that affect us if I don't have the right gear for that? How much is it if it's not perfect, but it's like 95% perfect? Like, is it really going to hurt me that much? Is it going to be worth for me to spend, weekends and weekends just trying to get this thing I need? No? Okay, cool. Then it's probably not worth investing that time just for this run. Instead, I can just kind of do my thing and then get it later if I get lucky.
Just as an example, just stay on that topic. For Destiny, there's a lot of stats, but getting to a different tier of stat will reduce something by like a few seconds. So, or there's other ways to make it go faster. For something like him with auto reloading, reloading your sniper rifle faster, it'd be frames. So would it really matter in the end? It helps, yes. But if he doesn't have it,
Are we really going to like have
Is it
our
gonna
run
hurt?
affected because I can't reload my sniper rifle 0.1 seconds faster than not being able to do that? So, and then weapons and armor. So like we have, again, we'll go through this example in a second, but like how much is it going to be bad if we don't have the perfect roll on our weapons? Some of the weapons have perks that we sort of rely on, but we don't need them. So I'll go through this quickly. It looks like a lot, but I'll go through this quickly. But this is just an example of the kit we're using for the run and how long it can take to actually do this. So this is a short list of everything we need to do this run on stage. But just, looking at this is top to bottom, shortest to fastest of what we could use. Worldline 0, a couple hours, armor, it's like a day. You could have something that works. But then you start getting like halfway through, 1 to 5 weeks. But that's also like minimum case scenario. Like you might still not get it to use for the run if you're going for the perfect kit. The third one up, Transversives Tractor, that's all just random stuff you get by just playing the game. So if you're not lucky, you could just go buy it from a vendor every weekend, but then that means you have to wait every single week over and over and over again until you get it. And then the bottom 2 things, you could just physically never get them. So you're just like gonna lose out on optimal time, optimal strats and stuff because you're just not lucky.
Izanagi's kind of the same way with the rare bounty.
Oh
it
my
says.
god,
I can attest to that.
So just a side story. This gun right here, Izanagi's Burden. This gun was broken. You couldn't get it. So it was the optimal weapon for speedruns, but the quest to get it was broken for like 3 months.
Nice.
So
Roughly, yeah.
not only were like new runners not able to do the fast strats, they physically just couldn't even try because they didn't have this particular weapon.
And it was like
broken.
right as that gun was like coming into the overall game meta too.
Yeah,
Because
like,
it was
it's not only
another
just
soldier.
speedrun meta, it's just
Yeah.
meta in general, so like new players can't do much.
There was another sniper that was better, and then once they took away the auto reloading, it just became better
So this
in
is
terms
just-
of DPS.
Just a quick example of like, so this is what we're using, and this is sometimes the struggle we'll go through just to try to get the items we need. Oop, there you go, your turn.
Yeah. So for Final Fantasy 14, we don't have any of that.
That must be real nice.
So our gear is obtaining gear is a little bit more structured. It's basically, so I kind of mentioned the tombstone grinding, of course. That coupled with the raiding and clearing the content and getting the weeklies done is kind of like those are the 2 like most important things. One of the biggest important things to being able to get your gear fast is the pace of which you clear the tier. So with the Destiny 2 runners, not that I'm trying to say their fights are.
You can say it.
Okay, their fights are easier.
Yeah, 100% they are. Absolutely.
For 14, our fight's a little bit more difficult to clear. Clearing in the first week, clearing all 4 fights, is not a super common thing. There are a lot of groups that do it, but they're like among the upper echelon of groups that do it. So being able to be in that rare first week groups is great, because the last fight of a tier drops the weapons, and the weapons are by far the most important upgrade for your character, because they increase your weapon damage, and your weapon damage is the most important stat for doing extra damage, doing extra healing. So having the difference between having that 4th turned weapon and having like your decent weapon that you come into the tier with, like, changes everything about like how you heal, how you damage, how you shield, that sort of thing. So it's very important that you clear those fights as soon as possible, so that way you can get the gear faster. So, you know, and I'd say like on average it's like 8 to 12 weeks for your entire group to obtain best in slot. Yeah, that's pretty nice. You know,
That must be nice. More looking at Packle, who took, I think, 6 months to get one particular piece of gear for the run.
Oh my god, I don't want to talk about it.
He still barely got it, too.
There's one specific perk I needed, and it could have rolled without it, and I would have been so mad. And then meanwhile, this guy over here has gotten like 10
11 now.
11 of the perfect roll for it.
yeah.
He'll just get in casually, just doing the activity.
Hold on.
I'm kidding.
Not only was I not done, Jimmy in the crowd has a question, so I'm gonna get done first, and then he's gonna ask his question. All right,
please.
One more thing I wanted to add is, like, as you can see, speedrunning before obtaining best in slot is inefficient. So as I mentioned before, like, having that weapon is the difference between like being able to say maybe cast a heal here versus just not having to do it at all, because your previous heals have done more than enough to keep your health, you know, at a proper level. Whereas when you have that old weapon, you have to like. You literally like reduce your heals by like, you know, I'm a healer main if it wasn't obvious. You literally reduce your heals by like probably like 20 to 30% of usage over the course of the fight, because you have that weapon. So it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to really start like getting into the nitty gritty of speedruns before you like obtain that bis. So Jimmy, you have a question? Go to the mic.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
I'm curious, in Final Fantasy, how often are new fights released?
Yeah, so I kind of went into that previously, but it's about, maybe you can step. Yeah, probably, that's fair.
Yeah.
About 7 months typically. So it's every other patch. So like for instance, 5.0 had a raid tier, and then 5.2 will have a raid tier, 5.4 will have a raid tier. So about 7 months, give or take. You know, of course, depending on estimates. But they adhere to a pretty regular schedule, so it's pretty like expected to expect it. Like, so like the next one will be coming in mid-February. They've already told us, so it's pretty common to think, okay, mid-February, that means we're probably getting the tier after that in like early October.
I'm letting you click now, because I'm antsy, apparently.
Bam.
Oh, sorry, scroll. I didn't know you could do that.
All you know. Now you know the scroll power.
Infinite
So-
scroll.
This is more of like, I guess, general speedruns, but with community involvement, you kind of need as much help as you get with a live game that's constantly changing. So with Destiny, there's 2 main sources that we have for finding these strats, finding these glitches or whatever we used. I will actually make a quick detour. Bungie doesn't patch out-of-bounds glitches, which is fantastic. So sometimes we get to keep using them because they find them really funny.
Leviathan especially.
Yeah, so that Riven kill I showed you earlier, where it's just grenade launchers into her mouth, they didn't fix that because they thought it was really funny. And they said that was on purpose. So they were just like, yeah, you can keep doing it. We don't care. And it's great. But like, so for community involvement, we have 2 major places that we find our information. There's a Raid Secrets subreddit, and they basically find things within like a day if they're out there, unless it's something that just never was even conceived of. But most
I believe
of the times,
they're
like,
the one who found the Dynamo issue.
Oh, they found that in hours.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
literally hours. And
Probably
Bungie was
every
like
one
2
of the
hours later.
Telesto bugs too.
Yeah.
What?
So probably every one of the Telesto bugs too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then Bungie's like, okay, we're just going to disable this for a bit.
So Raid Secrets is typically one place we look for finding like strats and things, and then there's also a dedicated speedrun Discord where they have a huge organized like channels for every single raid, every single mission, and things like that. And they'll post things exclusive to each mission. Okay, there might be this one spot you can stand in this mission, but the other mission takes place in the same spot, so you can use it in that mission instead. And it's great having like at least 2 dedicated sources that we can do that, especially for a live service game where things are just going to constantly change, get fixed, and get tweaked, and so on.
All right, here's where FF14 is a little bit more challenging than Destiny 2. So
As we've been getting this entire time.
our speedrunning scene is a little complicated because it is entirely community driven due to the way the game works. So if you please get to the next point. There's no official in-game damage meter, so you can't actually track your damage in-game. So you would think, oh, okay, well, that's fine. Like, even World of Warcraft is like that, but, they let you use add-ons. Well, about that, you can't actually use any third-party add-ons because they're against the TOS. It kind of throws a wrench in the plan. It's really difficult to kind of plan how you're going to execute a speed run, how you're going to, optimize your thing if you can't really compare and analyze what you're doing. There's very much a hush-hush mentality in the game because you can't talk about these things because I think, as you can imagine, yes, something does exist. Out of respect to Square, I will not talk about that. It's not very hard to find, but I won't talk specifically about that. But yes, something does exist. But as a result, we can't talk about this stuff in game. Like, that's possible because talking about it it's probably going to get you suspended from the game. So. And that's when we have our website and Discord. So we have FF Logs, which is a really good resource. It kind of helps you compare how you're doing on fights. It lets you it's a very powerful site because it not only lets you compare yourself as an individual to other people, it lets you break down how you did on an individual fight. It also sees how you did as a team, how you compare to other teams. You can look at each team member and see what they're doing. You can break it down by the second, by the minute, by the entire fight. You can break it down by skill. You can break it down by usage of your potions, which increase your damage. You can basically, anything you can think that you want to compare and analyze, you can do on that site as long as you're willing to put the time and effort in. So it really helps just to see what other people are doing, see what you're doing, and see how you can improve. And of course, we have Discord, The Balance, which is used to talk about class optimization, raid discussion, that sort of thing. So if you're looking to see what you can do to improve your own class, your own output, you can definitely go to that Discord and get some more information. It's kind of a good beginner resource for people. And then one thing I didn't mention, but is watching streams, because you watch streamers that are better than you and see what they're doing and how you can incorporate that. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I can click.
Yeah.
So sometime an expansion will just release, won't change anything, and everything will be still the same, but just a new item comes out that's just better than before. So you'll have these new items that come out, and you'll have to just adapt these new items into the route because it's so much better. So we've had plenty of items where new shotguns come out that have perks on them that other shotguns didn't have before, but they're now they're just in a better slot. So there was one shotgun that was in the secondary slot, but there was one that came out in the primary slot, and that's just better in general for the speedrun. So nothing about the run itself has changed. It's just what kit we're using is now completely better. We didn't have to change anything about the route. So it's like, oh, this makes things easier. Okay, cool. Just drop that and just move on to this thing. Easy access. So like I said, new items might do the same job, but way better. So like I said, that one shotgun we had, you couldn't put basically a bonus stat or a mod on it. But at the start of Black Armory, they dropped the one that I keep making fun of Packle about, but they dropped the new one that you can put that bonus stat on. So it just made everything much faster without any change to the actual raid itself. And this is something where we're gonna take over, and this is not really related to Final Fantasy at all.
Not one
For better or worse.
This is probably more related to just live service games in general. So you could probably put Apex Legends, Fortnite, and other things like that. You can't really speedrun those, but similar concepts. Seasonal events come and change something that works. So the example I'll use with Destiny 2 is Solstice of Heroes. What they did was it would be a certain elemental day. You would kill an enemy and it would explode elemental orbs. Cool, yay, it's fun. If you picked up 30 of them, some bonus effect would go off, and it would stay on you for the 30 seconds. So if it was solar, you'd just have this radiating nova of fire. If it was arc, you would jump and move faster. If it was void, you would gain invisibility by crouching. There was nothing we could personally do to not have that happen. So some runs we would just get through, and we would be practicing for GDQ submissions, and the run would be immediately invalid because one of us got a bonus effect that wouldn't be around when the event was over. So our run's invalid, completely out of our control again. But yay.
It lasts like a month too, didn't it?
Yeah.
Solstice was like a month, yeah. So like there was a month where like runs were complete, like you could still do them, but you could never submit them to the board because of stuff like that. The Revelry was some spring event where you had this little thing where you could basically make your abilities cool down way faster. That was under our control, but you could use it in like weird ways for fun. So like just a max like go all crazy, abilities run. What if I had my grenade all the time to go blow everything up? Like what would that kind of do? Back when Kirk was running New Game a lot and they still had experience levels, they did do one, I believe, double XP week or something like that.
And they sold things in like stores that had codes for double XP too.
Yeah.
Like
So,
I
like-
think they had a promotion with like Cheez-Its or something. So
Oh, they did do a Rockstar promotion too
Yeah.
at one point. But yeah, so like they had a double XP thing, and I did one run with someone else for fun just to see what it was like, and it saved like an hour and a half.
yeah, I think
Because
that
we
was-
got to just blow through everything without even like trying, just because there was out
I
of our
think that
control.
might have been the fastest someone's done that run in real time up until like
Now.
just before Shadowkeep, I think.
Were you gonna say something, Darkman? Or
No, I was just saying, FF14 had a similar promotion, except not nearly double XP. It was like some muffin company, I forgot what it was. Or like pastry company or something that gave you like an XP buff.
Yeah,
It's pretty funny.
question. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
What's up?
Suggestion, I guess. So, like Final Fantasy 11, World of Warcraft, and Black Desert Online all actually have event categories.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, in order to figure out which events were the most optimal and stuff like that, we would actually set up the boards to have an event category and then list what events were active in your category. So not only did it allow people to do runs during the events, but it also let people figure out which ones were actually like beneficial and like which
Yeah.
ones were fastest and stuff like that. So I just thought I'd just say you
Yeah.
may, in order to keep from like excluding people from being able to do runs.
It was more like they still actively. I would say I'm not on the mod team for Destiny.
yeah.
I just talked to a couple people on the mod team. They just do that to keep things simple.
Yeah,
so that way
yeah.
it's just one board, less to manage, less
Well,
stuff
like,
to worry about.
With Final Fantasy 11, we have a non-event and an event.
Yeah.
And that's just like, and we don't separate the events. It's just anything goes, as long as you just list what events are on there.
It's rarely, I should say, at least from Destiny's experience, it's rarely enough to drastically change what we're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
Double XP, like I said, they did that once in like 2017, like in winter or something like that. Like it was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
one-time thing. They never did it again. The Solstice of Heroes thing's only for a month, but also that changes every year. They try to do something new, different. So even if we did do like event boards, I guess for Destiny particularly, that would have to change also every year or every month.
Or just archive all of them.
Or
Yeah, I was gonna
archive
say,
something.
with
Yeah.
World of Warcraft, they have seasons, I guess,
Yeah.
or whatever that they do, so that like whenever the events change or that kind of stuff, they like, well, now that this is different, we'll just archive it into like that would be season 1. This is
Yeah.
season 2.
That's being done on the Destiny boards. All the ones before the most recent expansion, mainly because of the Lunafaction nerf,
Yeah,
are
yeah.
all archived. So they're still there. They're on a
Yeah.
different section, but for the modern, like these are the current season, current run, expansion, whatever boards, they're under different rules. So all the other ones just get like
I just
archived.
wanted to say that it's not like nobody can do things during events because I
Yeah.
know other MMOs do that.
No, that
like,
makes sense.
Don't discourage people from running them.
Yes, shock.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Speedrunning is not allowed.
It's not my fault, I swear. All right. Well, actually, we already talked about this, but what we use this example, like I said earlier, you can use the event for experimentation. So the Revelry, any ability you want could basically be on a 10% like max percent cooldown. So like you would have it throw a grenade, 2 seconds later it comes back. So you could just use that for fun. Say like, okay, what if in this particular mission I had a grenade everywhere and I could just blow everything up, but then that combos with this particular armor set with this mod or something like. Just the what ifs. Like, what if we could just go all out, have fun with it for like a week and see like how ridiculously fast it can get. So like, even though I did do a double XP weekend run and I knew it wasn't going to be counted on the boards, like how fast could it have been? What is the fastest time ever that run could have been done, even though it wasn't going to be counted? Just kind of the what if scenario. And I believe that's it. So
Yeah, and in FF14 with our events, we just do an event and get a cute hat that makes you look cute and does nothing. So I guess
Or
you
car.
look better in raid, so that's good. Yeah.
that must be cute.
You had a car mount once, right?
Yes, I do have a car.
So I mean, so in general, that's like just our experiences with running MMOs, switching from a static game to a game that constantly can change from time to time. And if so, does anyone have any other questions? If not, I think we're done here.
Woo!
You didn't knee me, by the way.
Huh?
You didn't like hit me in the thigh.
Because we didn't run out of time.
Okay. Oh,
What was the time limit?
We got 6 minutes left.
Okay.